Okay, let's talk about what A Course in Miracles is. Even though A Course in Miracles is a physical book with roughly 1,200 pages, a text, a workbook, a manual for teachers, a section called Clarification of Terms, and 2 appendices, it is not a book. It is a journey. The book is merely an outward expression of something that happens on the inside, in the mind. It is first and foremost a complete spiritual path from beginning to end. It has lessons, it has a teacher, and it has a curriculum, but that curriculum is not sequential. It doesn't progress from topic A to topic B and all the way to the end. It is structured more like a symphony, where one theme is being developed and then set aside to be exchanged by another theme, and yet another until the first one is being picked up again, followed for a while, developed further, and then the next one, and so on. The process is reminiscent of a spiral rather than a straight line. The Course is not the only path. As it says, quote, "There are many thousands of other forms, all with the same outcome. They merely save time." That is in the Manual for Teachers, Chapter 1, Chapter 1, Paragraph 4. The Course is, however, unlike any other path out there. Even though it feels, or it might feel at first, quite similar to other paths, right? The reason why it is unique among spiritualities is its subject matter. It is not love. It is not oneness. It is not unity or God. The subject matter of A Course in Miracles is guilt. And especially, specifically, the undoing of guilt. The Course is not about anything positive. It is not about bliss or happiness, joy, holiness, peace, love, and such. As the introduction to the text states, the Course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The blocks to the awareness of love's presence is what the Course calls the ego, which is the part of us that prefers a separated, individual existence over the oneness of God. The blocks are our belief in sin, caused by the seeming separation from God, and the subsequent experience of guilt and fear. The Course explains to us in sometimes excruciating detail how this guilt plays out and is expressed in our lives, and that whether this guilt is seen within us or in another is the very same thing. For this deep dive into guilt, the Course uses the Christian language, but it uses the terms inherent in this language in a completely different way. Words like atonement, sin, God, Jesus, the Son of God, grace, forgiveness, Christ, heaven, and such are used correctively, meaning the terms are given a completely different meaning in accordance with the Course's goal of, quote, removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. The Christian language picks us up where we are, but delivers us in time to a completely different place. That place is within us, beyond language and beyond learning. The Course combines the Christian language with Freudian psychology and terms and concepts such as denial, projection, perception, and so on, and then places the Christian language and the Freudian concepts into the greater framework of mythology that explains how the world was made, right? Why it was made and by whom, and what guilt has to do with it all. Lastly, the course, beginning roughly with the second half of the text, is written in blank verse, specifically iambic pentameter, the poetic style of Shakespeare. How the course was conceived is an example for its teachings. Two people asked for a better way of living in this world. The course was the answer. The following brief explanation of how A Course in Miracles came to be was taken from my book, My Life Without Jesus, a memoir. A much more detailed account can be found in the book Absence from Felicity by Kenneth Wapnick, available at facim.org. The year was 1965. The place, the College of Physicians and Surgeons at Columbia University in New York City. Dr. Helen Schuckman and Dr. William Thetford, both professors of clinical psychology, had worked together for 7 years in an environment that they described as competitive, hostile, riddled with conflict, and elitist. One day during the summer, before yet another meeting with other department heads, Bill gave a speech to Helen, in which he told her, in essence, that there must be another way, a better way of living in this world, of dealing with relationships, and that he was committed to finding it. To his surprise, Helen agreed to help him. This set in motion a series of events that they couldn't have foreseen. Helen, who had given up her search for God decades earlier, exchanging it for the ferocious pursuit of science and research, began to have vivid dreams and daydream-like images that she couldn't explain. In some of them, she saw herself and Bill in what happened to be other time periods, which she eventually attributed to past lives, even though she hadn't believed in the idea, hated it even. In several of those visions, a man appeared to her, helping her in one way or another. In one of the visions, she saw herself on a small boat floating down a canal. At some point, she pulled a wooden box out of the water, and when she opened it, there was a large book inside. The name on the spine was Aesculapius, the Greek god of medicine. She recognized at some point that the figure in her visions was Jesus. That made her even more uncomfortable. She wrote several letters to Bill during those times in which she mentioned the top sergeant, as she called him. He was giving her advice at times, and the authoritative presence was undeniable, while simultaneously inducing deep discomfort within her. One night in October of 1965, she called Bill frantically, telling him that the inner voice said, "This is A Course in Miracles. Please take notes." She was afraid that she would end up in the same hospital she worked in, but this time as a patient. She said there was more, but she didn't want to write it down because she thought she was going to lose her mind if she did. Bill suggested the only logical thing at that moment, I'm paraphrasing, "Why don't you write it down and bring it to the office in the morning? If it's gibberish, we'll throw it out and nobody will ever know about it." Helen did. And the next morning she came into the office and read to Bill what she had heard. They both discovered that this wasn't just some nonsense. It had substance, and Bill soon recognized that this was the answer to their commitment to finding another way. Helen would write in a spiral notebook, mostly at night and in shorthand. In the mornings, she would read it to Bill, who would type it up, sometimes holding her hand with one of his while typing with the other. The dictation took 7 years. Helen was never in trance. She could stop writing, take a phone call, or go to a meeting and pick up after without reading the previous sentence. She was very reluctant, terrified even, to write down the material, but it never occurred to her to stop. It was very clear to her that it came from Jesus, even though this still made her extremely uncomfortable. In 1972, when the dictation was finished, Helen and Bill met Kenneth Wapnick, a psychologist who was about to embark on a journey to become a monk. Helen showed him her 2 favorite passages from the Course, "For they have come," and "Choose once again." Ken felt that this was the most profound material he had ever read, written in a language as beautiful as Shakespeare. He decided not to become a monk, but rather to make the Course his life's work. Helen, Bill, and Ken then met Judith Scotch Whitson, who was integral to publishing the Course, and so beginning its journey into the world. After A Course in Miracles was published, Ken and his wife Gloria started the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, a teaching organization that is now located in Nevada. A Course in Miracles is a set of 3 books, a text, a workbook for students, and a manual for teachers. Besides being a deeply spiritual document for living in our time, it is a magnificent literary work, not only written in the first person, but its sweeping epic scope is unlike anything I've ever read before. Below is a very small example of the Course's poetic meter, combining the beauty of language with a profound depth of content. Let us be still an instant and forget all things we ever learned, all thoughts we had, and every preconception that we hold of what things mean and what their purpose is. Let us remember not our own ideas of what the world is for, we do not know. Let every image held of everyone be loosened from our minds and swept away. That is from the text, chapter 31, section 1. Now, I mentioned before that the Course is not a book, but a journey. Its end goal is peace, but how we get to this peace or how we achieve this peace is not by trying to get it in the traditional way. There are no affirmations or rituals. We don't have to earn peace in any way. The focus is not on behavior, but on our thinking. We achieve peace by realizing, first, that it is a choice we must make, and second, that it is there for us now, readily available, and third, and that is what sets the Course apart from any other spiritual path, how much we do not want it, how deep our investment is in anything that is not peace. We achieve peace by first uncovering and then looking at our wish not to be peaceful. As part of this, the goal of the Course is to get us in touch with our own decision-making mind. Right now, we believe the world decides for us. In time, we learn, quote, "Your mind is the means by which you determine your own condition, because mind is the mechanism of decision. It is the power by which you separate or join and experience pain or joy accordingly." That is in chapter 8, section 4. This takes time. It cannot be done in 1 year or 10 years. And the highest and best use of A Course in Miracles is for it to become a lifelong companion, where we slowly but surely change our thinking to be in line with the Course's thought system, rather than us using the Course for a short while to help us with a few problems here in the world and move on. There's nothing wrong with doing that, of course. But for the student who feels that the course is his or her path, it can and will become more than a friend, more than a teacher, and more than a guide. Its content becomes the very breath we take, the very thought when we get up in the morning and before we go to bed at night. The curriculum of the course is highly individualized because not one of us uses the very same symbols or comes from the same background. The principles and thoughts in the course are universal, but their application depends on where we are on our journey. So it is likely that a sentence means something different the first time we read it and when we read the very same line years later. Because we have changed, the sentence grows with us, taking on a deeper meaning each time we read it. Similarly, the course is written on many different levels, speaking to us in a form we can understand and accept wherever we are on our journey. Now let's talk about Jesus being the author. The range of acceptance of this goes from disbelief to awe and anything in between, right? In the end, it really doesn't matter. It's not the Jesus from 2,000 years ago that stood next to Helen Schucman dictating to her. The course wasn't dictated in Aramaic, but in English, and not in just any English, but in at times perfect Shakespearean meter, using Christian and Freudian language influenced by Plato. Helen loved the Bible as a literary work, knew it inside out, but had given up her search for God a decade earlier. She was an educator, a psychologist, and a lover of Shakespeare. One of the major concepts in the course is that love comes to us in the language we can understand. Think of love as water. It is formless and can therefore fill any container regardless of the shape and form. The love in Helen's right mind, you could call it the higher mind, even though this is not a term the course uses, is the very same love we all have in our right mind. This love is abstract by nature, like water is formless. Helen's mind translated the abstract love into her own concrete framework. The form is hers, but the content is not. The presence of Jesus within her is the presence of all-encompassing love that is in everyone. The difference is that she had access to it during the 7 years of the writing down the material. She was able to leave the channel open so that love could flow through her, manifesting in words and concepts and ideas those of us who feel drawn to the material can understand. And what attracts some of us to the course is not the form, not the language, but the content, the love that is the source of the material. Jesus is a teacher within the curriculum of the course, but only insofar as we need him as a symbol. I personally grew up Catholic, and so it makes sense that I would now use a document that uses Christian language and choose Jesus as my teacher, right? But there are thousands of other paths using many different frameworks. Within the course, we will eventually come to the realization that the very same love Jesus represents is in all of us. In fact, we are that all-encompassing love. But as of right now, we have buried this love under layers upon layers of guilt. It is the course's goal to get us in touch with this guilt within us, and with the help of our inner teacher, look at it and eventually decide against it and let it go. Once the obstacles to peace are removed, peace will rise within us naturally. Until then, the Course can become our companion, getting us in touch with not only our darkness, but also our light. As the Course states, the light within us is real, the darkness is illusion. But in order to get to the light, we must first look at the darkness, and that we have made it real and in which we believe so completely. In this sense, the following paragraph from the Course, from the text, provides a blueprint for the whole process of the Course. It says, "No one can escape from illusions unless he looks at them, for not looking is the way they are protected. There's no need to shrink from illusions, for they cannot be dangerous. We are ready to look more closely at the ego's thought system because together we have the lamp that will dispel it, and since you realize you do not want it, you must be ready. Let us be very calm in doing this, for we are merely looking honestly for truth. The dynamics of the ego will be our lesson for a while, for we must look first at this to see beyond it, since you have made it real. We will undo this error quietly together and then look beyond it to the truth." That is in the text, chapter 11, section 5. When my own journey with the Course began back in Germany in 1992, there was no German translation of the Course available. That would happen 2 years later. So I had been searching for a way out of the emotional pain I was in, while not even being aware of that at all. And I had read hundreds of New Age books and esoteric material, from Reiki to creative visualization to Bach flowers and the power of positive thinking and such. I had read all of them, literally hundreds. At one point I ordered a book on love by a German psychologist whose name I forgot, but a completely different book came in the mail. It was called The Heart of Healing by Bruce Davis and Jenny Wright Davis. The book contained quotes from the Course, and when I read them, I started to cry, without knowing why. I ordered the English version and tried to translate it, but to no avail. I had absolutely no clue what it said, but I knew one thing for certain, that I had found my path. I had no idea what would await me, and now 30 years later, I can say that the Course is not an easy path by any measure. It has its moments of beauty and peace and joy, but at large, once the honeymoon phase is over, it is not something that is geared in making our lives here better. It will get better eventually, but that's not the goal of the Course. The goal of the Course is for us to experience peace, whatever the circumstances are. And in order to attain peace, we must realize first how much we don't want it, how much we are afraid of it, in fact. One of the terms that are completely different in the Course versus any other system, including Christianity, is forgiveness. In the Course, forgiveness is not for something that has been done. The act itself is not the issue, because we believe in our own guilt, and that experience of guilt is too overwhelming, we deny it and then project it onto another, believing now that the other is the guilty one. And that is what needs forgiveness. In other words, what needs forgiveness is not the other person, but our own guilt perceived in the other person. As the Course says, quote, "You never hate your brother for his sins, but only for your own." And that is in the text, chapter 31, section 3. It really is impossible to convey everything the Course is about in one session, obviously. But I hope this short explanation was helpful to you and enough for you to decide whether or not you want to pursue it any further. As a closing, I would like to read the first four paragraphs from lesson 122 in the workbook. The workbook lesson is called "Forgiveness Offers Everything I Want." I think that summarizes really nicely the purpose of the Course. What could you want forgiveness cannot give? Do you want peace? Forgiveness offers it. Do you want happiness, a quiet mind, a certainty of purpose, and a sense of worth and beauty that transcends the world? Do you want care and safety and the warmth of sure protection always? Do you want a quietness that cannot be disturbed, a gentleness that never can be hurt, a deep abiding comfort and a rest so perfect it can never be upset? All this forgiveness offers you and more. It sparkles on your eyes as you awake and gives you joy with which to meet the day. It soothes your forehead while you sleep and rests upon your eyelids, so you see no dreams of fear and evil, malice and attack. And when you wake again, it offers you another day of happiness and peace. All this forgiveness offers you and more. Forgiveness lets the veil be lifted up that hides the face of Christ from those who look with unforgiving eyes upon the world. It lets you recognize the Son of God and clears your memory of all dead thoughts so that remembrance of your Father can arise across the threshold of your mind. What would you want forgiveness cannot give? What gifts but these are worthy to be sought? What fancied value, trivial effect, or transient promise never to be kept can hold more hope than what forgiveness brings? Why would you seek an answer other than the answer that will answer everything? Here is the perfect answer given to imperfect questions, meaningless requests, half-hearted willingness to hear, and less than halfway diligence and partial trust. Here is the answer: seek for it no more. You will not find another one instead. Thanks for watching.